Like in this exact moment, your brain is doing something incredibly exhausting, and you probably aren't even aware of it.
Most people definitely aren't.
Right. It's constantly doing the math on your environment. Like it's calculating the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, filtering out the traffic on the street outside, and, just bracing for the inevitable ping of a notification on your phone.
It's a nonstop processing of ambient sound.
Exactly.
Uh,
So contrast that with this. Picture yourself standing near a river on a completely ordinary afternoon. There's just the natural light, the quiet rustle of the trees, and then from somewhere miles away, a train whistle blows.
just a standard, everyday sound.
Yeah, an incredibly mundane sound, one you've heard 100 times. But this time, your body physically stops before your conscious mind even has the chance to register what the sound actually is. Your breathing suddenly shifts, your muscles change their tension, and you just find yourself standing profoundly still.
That involuntary stillness is, well, it's a brilliant piece of biological engineering.
Oh, for sure.
It's a phenomenon where the nervous system receives and responds to an acoustic signal by completely bypassing the analytical centers of the brain. The sound waves hit your ear, translate into electrical impulses, and shoot straight to the oldest parts of your nervous system.
So it's like a fast track.
Exactly. By the time your frontal lobe catches up to categorize the noise as, a train whistle, your body has already altered its physical state. It's an ancient survival mechanism, but it's also a doorway into something much, much deeper.
And that biological doorway is exactly what we are exploring today. We are taking a deep dive into an unreleased manuscript. It's titled Listen to the Spell: Music as Magic.
It's a really fascinating text.
It is. It's by Tim Pellerin, who is a Houston-based neurodivergent author and the founder of Calm in Chaos Music Therapy.
And the premise of this manuscript is incredibly compelling because it treats sound not as, casual entertainment or just background noise. It treats it as a highly functional ancient technology.
Which is such a wild way to think about music.
It really changes the paradigm. The mission of our deep dive today is to explore how this technology literally hacks the human nervous system. We are looking at music as functional magic.
Right.
We're going to examine how specific acoustic mechanisms, things like rhythm, tone, material density, and even silence, operate on a measurable biological level entirely beneath our conscious decisions.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if we want to understand how a complex arrangement of sound casts this physical spell on us, we have to start at the absolute beginning.
The very beginning.
Yeah, I'm talking about the very first sound any of us ever experienced, long before our brains even knew what the concept of sound was.
The baseline of human hearing. The very first encounter your developing nervous system has with sound takes place in the fluid environment of the womb.
Right.
And that sound is entirely, unrelentingly rhythmic. It is the mother's heartbeat.
Wow, yeah.
It's steady, it is close, and because you're suspended in fluid, it's felt through the developing skeletal structure just as much as it is heard through the ear.
So it's a full-body physical sensation, not just an audio one.
Exactly. From a biological and neurological perspective, this establishes a fundamental hardwired truth for the developing brain. It teaches you that the world possesses a rhythm, and that rhythm can be trusted to continue.
Because it just keeps going.
Right. The beat you heard a second ago will be there in the next second. It's the pure definition of predictability.
It's wild to consider that our absolute baseline expectation for existence, like our original definition of safety, is just a steady, trustworthy pulse.
And that foundational knowledge never leaves us. It stays buried deep in the autonomic nervous system. So when we encounter an external, steady rhythm later in life, our body doesn't actually have to learn anything new.
It just taps into what's already there.
Yeah, it simply remembers what it already deeply knows. And this brings us to a crucial physics phenomenon known as entrainment.
Entrainment, that's the classic pendulum clock experiment, isn't it?
It is. And the physics behind it explains human biology perfectly. If you place two pendulum clocks on the same wooden wall and start them at completely different times, they will eventually swing in perfect unison.
Just automatically.
Automatically. It isn't magic. It's just the transfer of kinetic energy. Minute vibrations from the heavier or faster pendulum travel through the wood of the wall.
Oh, I see.
The clock that is out of sync is essentially fighting against those subtle physical vibrations, which means it is burning extra energy to stay out of sync.
And physics hates burning extra energy.
Exactly. Physics always favors the path of least resistance. So the pendulums naturally nudge each other into a synchronized rhythm simply to conserve energy. Living biological systems operate on the exact same principle.
So we're the pendulum clocks.
We are. When you are placed in a room with a steady, dominant drum beat, your heartbeat, your breathing patterns, and eventually even your brainwave activity will begin to naturally synchronize with that external pulse.
And the manuscript points out that this isn't some poetic metaphor. It is a measurable, verifiable biological loophole.
A literal physical reaction.
Yeah. It is the literal engine running underneath ancient shamanic drumming, chanting traditions, and, communal drum circles. The drum doesn't force your body into submission. It just offers a massive, steady pulse. And your nervous system, which is constantly looking for ways to conserve energy, accepts the invitation.
It aligns with the beat because it's the path of least resistance.
Right. But then I was just thinking about that in the context of our daily lives. Your brain is essentially a massive prediction engine, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It burns actual calories trying to guess what is going to happen next in order to keep you safe. So living in a modern city is like being trapped in a car with a terrible DJ who constantly changes the tempo and skips the song every 5 seconds.
That is a great way to put it.
Your brain's prediction engine goes into absolute overdrive trying to anticipate the next erratic beat, and as a result, your whole body physically clenches. You end up in this state of perpetual bracing. So, if our nervous systems are totally braced by modern noise, a steady drum beat isn't just a cool aesthetic choice, it literally acts as a form of physiological relief, right?
What's fascinating here is how this biological need for rhythmic predictability completely clashes with the environment most of us live in today. Modern life has a severe rhythm problem.
Yeah, big time.
We are constantly bombarded by competing, unpredictable acoustic pulses. We navigate the erratic, randomized chime of phone notifications, the jagged stop-and-go stutter of traffic, the fragmented urgency of television commercials.
It's exhausting.
It is. Our acoustic environment is fundamentally unstable. That is the core argument of the manuscript. When your nervous system is locked in a constant state of bracing against unpredictable noise, a steady, trustworthy rhythm allows it to finally stand down.
Because it knows what's coming.
Exactly. The brain's prediction engine recognizes a safe, repeating pattern and realizes it no longer needs to burn calories anticipating a threat. It releases its vigilance. The physiological relief happens because the body is finally permitted to stop doing the exhausting work of tracking the unknown.
That makes so much sense. Unpredictable rhythms lock us into a braced state, and a steady pulse provides the biological safety required to step out of it.
Precisely.
But if we want to move beyond just finding a baseline of safety, like if we want to truly deeply unbrace, we have to look at the internal structure of the music itself.
The architecture of the sound.
Yeah. And the source material is just a method that honestly feels totally counterintuitive to how we usually consume art. To truly unbrace, we have to stop trying to move forward entirely.
To understand why that works, we have to look at the architecture of the music we typically consume on a daily basis. Western music, by design, is inherently forward-moving.
Right, there's always a direction.
It's built on a linear narrative structure. It has verses that build into choruses, bridges that introduce tension, and final chords that provide resolution. It trains the listener's brain to constantly ask one specific underlying question. Where is this going?
We're always anticipating the drop or the key change.
Exactly. We are taught to measure the value of a piece of music by the journey it takes from the first note to the last.
It's an auditory novel. But repetitive music, like a lute Gregorian chant or minimal electronic ambient tracks, completely refuses to go anywhere.
It stays right where it is.
It just returns to the same exact phrase over and over and over again. According to the text, this is essentially a set of instructions for the listener's nervous system. It's actively telling you to start asking where the music is going and to start noticing exactly where you already are.
The cognitive mechanism at play here is remarkably efficient. The first time you hear a repeating musical pattern, your brain just processes the new information.
Okay, makes sense.
The second time, you recognize the pattern. The third time, you anticipate it. But by the fifth or sixth repetition, something fundamental shifts in your cognition.
What happens?
Your brain's prediction engine essentially turns off because there is absolutely nothing left to predict. The pattern is entirely known. The narrative tension vanishes.
But wait, let me pause you there and push back on this.
Sure.
Our entire modern culture is obsessed with productivity and forward motion. If I listen to a track that just plays the exact same 4 bars for 10 minutes, doesn't that just bore the analytical brain into submission?
Oh.
Honestly, if a song isn't going anywhere, my brain starts looking for the nearest exit. How is my brain actually acting differently on the 10th loop versus the second loop? Aren't I just zoning out?
That is the most common critique of repetitive music, for sure. But it fundamentally misinterprets how human attention works when it's relieved of predictive labor.
Oh.
Pellerin uses a specific geometric concept to explain this shift: the spiral. Repetitive music isn't the flat circle where you just walk the same exact, exhausting path over and over. It's a downward spiral.
A downward spiral. Okay.
The notes being played are identical every single time they come around, but by the 10th repetition, you have fundamentally changed.
Because I'm not predicting anymore.
Exactly. Because your analytical brain isn't burning energy trying to figure out what chord comes next, a massive amount of cognitive bandwidth suddenly opens up. You begin to hear the micro-textures of the sound. The distance between you and the music closes. You aren't traveling further away down a linear path. You're traveling deeper into the sound itself.
Okay, I see the distinction. It's the difference between a typical road trip on a highway where you're just constantly scanning the horizon, burning energy, looking for the next exit, versus dropping a heavy anchor in the middle of the ocean and putting on scuba gear to explore the reef directly underneath you.
That is a perfect translation of the concept.
You aren't covering any miles, but you're experiencing immense depth.
Right. And once that repetitive rhythm gets you to drop the anchor and stop moving forward, you finally have the cognitive space to examine the physical materials that are actually building your sonic environment. We have to strip the sound down to its physical reality and ask, what is this tone literally made of?
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the manuscript explores the idea that every acoustic material carries its own physical history into the sound it produces.
Yes, the history of the object.
Take wood, for example. The text explains that an acoustic guitar or a wooden flute sounds warm and inviting because of the actual cellular structure of the material. Wood is porous.
It breathes.
Yeah, it grew over decades. It absorbed water. It responded to seasons. When sound waves travel through wood, those microscopic porous cells physically absorb the harsh, high-frequency vibrations, leaving only the rich, warm, lower tones to reach your ear. You are materially hearing the biological history of a tree.
And you can immediately hear the contrast when you look at metal. Think of bronze bells, steel gongs, or brass singing bowls.
Completely different vibe.
Completely different, because metal doesn't have that porous cellular structure. Its atomic structure is dense, rigid, and crystalline. It doesn't absorb energy, it reflects it perfectly.
Oh, wow.
So where wood is warm and absorbs the sharp edges of a sound, metal declares. It pushes high-frequency overtones rapidly into the air. It gets right through ambient noise, and more importantly, it cuts through ambient thought.
Like it demands attention.
Exactly, has an acoustic authority. Then you have stone, which absorbs sound in a way that feels incredibly dense, carrying the slow, absolute patience of geological time. These aren't just poetic associations we've invented. These are distinct, physical acoustic signatures that our nervous systems instinctively decode.
And it goes even deeper than the raw material. The manuscript breaks down the biology of the frequencies themselves. Low frequencies, like a heavy sub-bass, don't just move the air in a room.
They move you.
Yes. They physically vibrate your skeletal structure. The sound waves are so large and powerful that they bypass the delicate eardrum entirely and travel through bone conduction. They stimulate deep mechanoreceptors in your body. It literally gives your nervous system a physical sensation of grounding mass.
It's a very visceral experience.
And then high frequencies do the exact opposite. A pure, piercing high tone involves very fast, tight sound waves that cause the tiny hair cells inside your cochlea to fire incredibly rapidly.
That rapid firing triggers an immediate physiological alertness.
The author vividly describes high frequencies as feeling like rinsing the inside of the skull, which is such an amazing phrase.
It really is, which leaves us with the critical middle ground, the mid-range frequencies. This is the exact acoustic register where the human voice naturally lives.
Ah, right.
Over millions of years of evolution, our brains have prioritized this specific frequency range above all others. When instruments like a cello or a saxophone play in this specific register, it directly activates our mammalian social circuitry.
It feels like talking.
Yes, it feels inherently communicative. It feels like someone is speaking directly to you, even without words. All of these physical elements, the density of the material, the literal size of the frequency waves, and the timbre, which is the unique texture of a sound, operates as a direct line of communication to the nervous system. completely bypassing our conscious defenses.
You don't get to logically decide how the resonance of a cello makes you feel. The physical friction of that wooden sound communicates warmth and safety to your biology before your frontal lobe even registers that a note is being played.
It's immediate.
But the book introduces one more instrument into this mix, and it honestly blew my mind. It argues that physical space itself is an active instrument.
Oh, for an acoustic musician, physical space is arguably the most important instrument of all.
Really?
Absolutely. Imagine a Tibetan singing bowl. If you strike that metal bowl in a small, heavily tiled bathroom, the resulting sound is going to be sharp, aggressive, and incredibly fast.
Because it's bouncing off all the hard surfaces.
Exactly. The hard ceramic tiles are highly reflective, bouncing the sharpest, highest overtones right back at your ear with zero absorption. Now take that exact same singing bowl, strike it with the exact same force, but do it in a large room filled with heavy carpets, velvet curtains, and plush furniture.
Oh, it sounds completely different.
Totally transformed. It becomes soft and breathing. The soft materials in the room absorb all the aggressive high frequencies, allowing the deep fundamental tone, the physical room it needs to expand.
So when we hear a sound, we aren't just hearing the object that made it. We are literally hearing an acoustic map of everything the sound wave bounced off of before it hit our eardrums.
A sonic fingerprint of this space.
Just like that train whistle from the beginning of our deep dive. It wasn't just a whistle. By the time it reached your ear, it carried the acoustic signature of the water in the river it crossed and the specific density of the pine trees it passed through.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, every single sound that reaches your nervous system is a deep collaboration between the original source and the physical environment. You are quite literally always hearing the space you occupy.
That's incredible to think about.
It is. Which brings us to a fascinating, almost paradoxical threshold in the manuscript. What exactly happens to human perception when we take a single, perfectly crafted tone and stretch it out indefinitely within a specific space?
You're talking about the concept of the drone,
Yes. A drone is a sustained tone that simply does not end.
like bagpipes.
Kind of, but think more like the continuous hum of an Indian tanpura, or a single unwavering note held down on a massive pipe organ inside a stone cathedral. Pellerin observes that a single sustained note played in an empty cathedral actually renders the architecture visible in a completely new way.
Wait, visible?
Visible to the ear. Because the sound is continuous, it eventually fills every single cubic inch of the space. You can physically hear the shape of the vaulted stone ceilings because the sustained sound waves map the entire volume of the room.
And drones do something incredibly strange to our neurological perception of time, right? Normally, we measure time passing through changes in our environment. But in a drone, there is no rhythm to track.
Not at all.
There is no melody developing toward a chorus. The temporal landmarks we rely on are completely erased. As a result, our ordinary measurement of time just gets completely suspended.
Because the human mind constantly searches for a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
It waits for a change to react to. But the drone is relentlessly patient. It refuses to change.
That waits you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Eventually, your brain gives up the exhausting search for forward motion or narrative development. And in that total surrender of expectation, your consciousness is forced to inhabit the absolute, unwavering present moment.
It's like tensing your body while waiting for the punchline to a joke. You're bracing for the release, but eventually you realize there is no joke, there is no punchline coming, and you finally just relax into the pure sound of the voice speaking.
That's a great analogy.
And the manuscript points out that this seemingly static music is actually highly dynamic, but it breathes through sheer volume.
The dynamics become the melody.
Yeah. The slow, sweeping swells of a drone getting louder and quieter aren't just there to make things sound dramatic. They physically transition the listener's consciousness. When a massive sound slowly fades out over 2 minutes, it physically draws your neurological attention inward, tracking the sound as it vanishes.
And while that drone is breathing in volume, it is also producing a complex physical phenomenon known as overtones.
Right, the hidden notes.
Yes, a fundamental tone. The main note you think you are hearing is never actually just one note. It contains a whole mathematical sequence of higher frequencies called the harmonic series, vibrating simultaneously above it.
So it's layers.
It's like seeing a streak of purple paint, but upon closer inspection, realizing it is made up of distinct layers of red and blue. Your conscious ear might not isolate those individual high-ringing tones, but your nervous system is literally bathed in this incredibly complex, organized mathematical relationship of sound waves.
Wow.
However, the most crucial part of a drone piece isn't the sound itself. It is exactly what happens the very millisecond the drone finally stops.
The resulting silence. But the author is very careful to clarify that this isn't an empty, dead silence. It's an incredibly active aftermath.
Precisely. When the fundamental drone ceases, the high-frequency overtones are actually still physically bouncing around the room, slowly fading.
So the room is still ringing.
Exactly. But more importantly, your own nervous system is still resonating. It is slowly biologically adjusting back to its baseline state. In that specific charged silence, with absolutely no external acoustic input left to track, your attention, which has been stretched wide open by the drone, is forced to turn entirely inward.
And the manuscript refers to this specific type of silence as diagnostic. It reveals exactly what physical and mental state you are carrying inside of you.
It holds up a mirror.
It reminds me of a glass of muddy water from a river that has been shaken up violently. The drone is the slow, deliberate process of setting that glass down on a sturdy table. The silence that follows is the time it takes for the sediment to finally settle to the bottom. When the sediment settles, the water becomes completely clear, and you can finally see exactly what's actually in the glass.
That is a highly accurate visualization of the neurological process. And all of these individual physical elements we've meticulously discussed, the biological entrainment of rhythm, the deep cognitive spiral of repetition, the physical density of the tone, and the time-suspending architecture of the drone, they are all laying the necessary groundwork.
Groundwork for what?
For one specific ancient phenomenon. They are setting the neurological stage for an acoustic conversation designed to actually dissolve the boundary of the self.
This is where we arrive at the oldest musical structure in human history: call and response.
The foundation of communal music.
A solo voice or instrument calls out into the space, and a larger group answers. It is a structure present in literally every single musical tradition on the planet. And the book explains that this format directly targets and activates the mammalian social circuits deep in our nervous system.
But the true functional magic of call and response doesn't actually occur during the call.
Oh, really?
No, nor does it occur during the response. The mechanism operates entirely in the silence between them, the pause.
The space in between.
Yes. When the call is made and you are waiting for the answer, you are placed in a rare, highly specific psychological state that Pellerin calls open waiting.
Oh, open waiting.
You don't know exactly what the collective response will be. Your brain's prediction engine realizes it lacks the data to guess the outcome, so it cannot predict or control it. You must remain entirely open to whatever arrives.
So what does this all mean on a biological level?
When you enter that state of open waiting, your brain temporarily shuts off its predictive coding loop. When that exhausting calculation stops, your brain physically shifts from high alert beta waves into slower, calmer alpha or even theta waves.
Just from waiting for a response.
Just from the pause, your cortisol levels drop rapidly because your nervous system registers that there is no immediate threat to calculate or brace against. You aren't just feeling a sense of peace, you are fundamentally altering your blood chemistry and your brainwave state.
And when all these physical elements align perfectly, the rhythm synchronizing your heart, the tone vibrating your bones, the space filtering the frequencies, and the neurological shift of open waiting, the listener experiences what the author calls the spell.
The title of the book.
Exactly. The rigid boundary between you and the external music temporarily just dissolves. You start being a separate person sitting in a room analyzing a song, and your brain simply registers that you are inside the music.
This raises an important question about how we construct our reality. Pellerin argues that the strict separation of self and object, the idea that you end exactly where your skin ends, is revealed to be just a piece of highly useful neurological scaffolding.
Scaffolding meaning it's temporary.
Right. It's a predictive tool that helps us safely navigate the physical world. But it isn't a fixed, absolute truth of our existence. Under the right, highly specific acoustic conditions, that predictive scaffolding can be safely powered down.
So just to clarify this, because it sounds almost like you're losing your identity or disappearing into some vague void.
It can sound like that, yeah.
But the manuscript is saying the exact opposite, right? You aren't disappearing into the sound. You are simply dropping the exhausting, calorie-burning work of keeping yourself neurologically separate from the rest of the physical world for a few minutes.
That is the core insight. You are briefly experiencing the biological reality of being deeply physically interconnected with your environment.
It's pretty profound.
It is. And the most profound conclusion of the entire manuscript is that this spell isn't actually generated by the music. It never was.
Wait, then what is generating it?
The spell is entirely located in the listening. It is the specific, highly attuned quality of attention you bring to the physical sound waves that allows that neurological boundary to dissolve.
Uh,
The music is simply a reliable key, designed to unlock a state of profound presence that your biology is already fully capable of achieving.
so to quickly summarize this massive, incredible journey we've been on,
It's been a journey.
we started in the womb looking at the biological entrainment of our mother's heartbeat, which hardwires our nervous systems to seek out trustworthy rhythms simply to conserve energy. We explored how the geometric spirals of repetitive music teach our brains to stop predicting the future, drop our anchor, and go deep. We examined the physics of sound, how the cellular structure of wood and the rigid atoms of metal physically alter the frequencies that hit our eardrums. We saw how drones stretch our neurological perception of time until it snaps into pure presence, leaving behind a diagnostic silence. And finally, we broke down how the biology of open waiting during a call and response actually shifts our brainwaves, temporarily dissolving the exhausting boundary between ourselves and the physical world.
It is a truly remarkable, scientifically grounded framework for understanding human perception.
It really is.
And it leaves us with one final, deeply practical thought to explore on our own. Pellerin writes that sound is intimately, physically shaped by every single surface it encounters: the water of the river, the cellular density of the trees, the hard reflection of the tiled bathroom.
The acoustic map.
Right. Space acts as a literal acoustic filter that physically changes the frequency of our lived experience. So I want you to consider the literal physical architecture of the spaces you spend the most time in.
Oh, like your everyday spaces.
It's exactly your office, your living room, the interior of your car. How are those physical materials subtly filtering the acoustic timbre of your daily life? Are the hard glass surfaces, chaotic open layouts, and unpredictable notification pings around you creating a constant low-level drone of anxiety that forces your brain to constantly predict threats?
Wow.
Or have you intentionally built a physical space with materials and rhythms that finally allow your nervous system to put down its scaffolding and settle?
That is something to seriously think about the very next time you walk into a room and close the door behind you.
Oh.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the physical magic of sound. As you go about the rest of your day, we encourage you to listen just a little bit closer to the ordinary acoustic environment of your afternoon. You never know when a distant train whistle might bypass your brain and cast a spell.